The first thing you need to know is this: the puppy didn't cry. Not once. Not when they threw her out the window. Not when her tiny body hit the gravel. Not even when her front leg bent the wrong way, bone splitting through skin, a snapped twig. She didn't make a sound. Maybe she knew it wouldn't matter. She was maybe 5 weeks old. Way too young to be away from her mother, still with that soft puppy belly and ears that hadn't quite figured out which direction they wanted to go. But someone, let's not give them the honor of being called a person, decided she didn't matter. So they dumped her off the side of an old country road like she was a fast food wrapper, middle of nowhere, no houses, no people. Just weeds, heat, and the occasional semi-truck blowing past like a hurricane. And that's where she stayed, broken leg, bleeding paw, belly full of worms. Just lying there in the ditch, eyes blinking slow like she was trying to figure out if this was still the world or something worse. She was there for hours. Now here's where the story could have ended. Could have just faded to black right there. No hero, no twist. Because that's how it goes for a lot of dogs. Most people never see it, never know what gets left behind when someone decides a living thing is inconvenient. But then, this is the part that sticks in your brain. A roar cut through the quiet. Not a car, not a truck, a Harley, loud, obnoxious. The kind of sound that punches you in the chest before your brain catches up. And the man riding it. You'd never guess what was about to happen next just by looking at him. He was tall, built like a guy who's done more than a few bar fights, and maybe won all of them. Thick beard, leather vest, tattoos crawling up both arms like ivy. The kind of guy most people would cross the street to avoid. The kind of guy who doesn't cry, doesn't babysit, and definitely doesn't do puppy rescue. But here's the thing, he saw her. He didn't just drive past like everyone else. He saw something small twitching in the ditch. He hit the brakes so hard the tires screamed. Pulled a hard U-turn and parked that like he owned the whole damn road. When he got off and walked toward her, he didn't yell or panic or whip out his phone like most people would. He just crouched down real slow and whispered, "Hey there, little one. What the hell happened to you?" She still didn't cry. Didn't move. He took off his vest and wrapped her up like she was made of glass. Picked her up and looked around, like someone might be hiding behind the trees with a gun. There wasn't. Just silence. He didn't hesitate. Didn't think about it. He got back on the bike with this half-dead puppy bundled in leather and took off like the road owed him something. He rode 47 miles to the nearest vet. Not hospital. Not clinic. A rural vet who mostly dealt with cows and the occasional horse with a nail in its hoof. The nurse took one look at the bundle in his arms and said, "We're not really equipped for. Fix her," he growled. "Or tell me who can. You don't say no to a guy like that. Not when he's looking at you like you're the one who hurt her." They did what they could. Set the leg, gave her fluids, antibiotics, pain meds. The vet wasn't optimistic. Said dogs that young, that broken, don't usually make it. But the biker, he didn't buy that. He sat there in the waiting room for 7 straight hours. Didn't eat, didn't blink, just sat. Eventually the vet came out and said, "She's sleeping. We'll see how she does overnight." And the biker, he said, "Where's the cot?" They gave him a damn storage closet with a plastic chair and a thin blanket. He took it. Next morning, she was still alive. That's when the biker decided she was his. He named her Ghost, because she'd almost become one. Here's where the story should get easier. Happier. But it didn't. Ghost couldn't walk for a while. Couldn't eat on her own. She had seizures. Infections. At one point they thought she might lose the leg entirely. The biker had to learn how to syringe feed a puppy. He watched YouTube tutorials with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth and his massive fingers fumbling with bottles and gauze like a grizzly trying to do brain surgery. And you know what? He never complained. He never gave up. Because something in that little dog grabbed hold of something in him. She started healing. Slowly. Her bones fused. Her appetite came back. One day she wagged her tail for the first time, just a tiny twitch, but he saw it and his face cracked into this grin like the sky opening up. Weeks passed. Then months. Ghost learned to walk again. She limped, but she didn't care. She had this strange way of leaning her body against his leg when they walked, like she didn't quite trust the ground unless he was next to her. They went everywhere together. the grocery store, the bar, the motorcycle rallies. People started recognizing them. The big scary biker with the ghost white dog who wore a tiny set of goggles and rode in a sidecar like a damn celebrity. She changed him. He used to get in fights. Used to have this cloud behind his eyes like he was always waiting for the next bad thing to happen. But with her, he started laughing, started talking to people. Real conversations, not just grunts and head nods. Ghost had a way of making people stop and see what they usually missed. A biker and a rescue dog. Doesn't sound like much, but they were a reminder that people aren't always who you think they are. And sometimes love shows up in the loudest, most unexpected way. Then came the night they almost lost her again. It was a storm. Heavy rain. Lightning cracking like the world was splitting open. They were on a highway, coming back from a charity ride for a local shelter. Ghost was in her sidecar, strapped in goggles on. A truck hydroplaned. Swerved. The biker laid the bike down to avoid it. Slid across the asphalt like a matchbox. Sparks. Screams, metal. When he came to, the first thing he said wasn't, "What happened?" or, "Am I okay?" He said, "Where's Ghost?" She was there, shaking, cut up, but alive. And so was he. They healed again, together. A few years passed. And here's what'll wreck you. One day, they were parked outside a gas station just getting coffee. Ghost was sitting like a queen in her sidecar, watching cars go by. And this little girl, maybe 8, walked up with her mom. Big eyes, quiet voice. She pointed at Ghost and said, "Is she a rescue?" The biker looked down at her and said, "No, she rescued me." The mom blinked. From what? He didn't say anything for a second. Then he knelt beside the girl and said, "From being someone who didn't care." That's it. That's the story. A puppy tossed like trash. A biker who wasn't supposed to care. And a bond that flipped both their worlds inside out. You think this stuff doesn't happen. You think people are too broken or too busy or too far gone. But sometimes, all it takes is one quiet moment. 1 second of doing the right thing instead of driving past. And everything changes. His name was Luke, though nobody called him that anymore. Most people knew him as Steel, a name earned, not chosen. Back when he rode with the Iron Howlers MC, back when his knuckles were raw more often than not, back when he believed fists and throttle were the only answers worth listening to. He had a record, small stuff, mostly. Assault, resisting arrest, drunk and disorderly. He wasn't evil, just angry, always had been. His father bailed before he could walk. His mom tried, she really did. But trying doesn't feed a kid or keep the lights on, and by the time Luke was 15, he was sleeping in borrowed cars and picking fights like they were currency. Somewhere along the way, he learned the world doesn't owe you kindness. So he stopped expecting it. Life was easier when you assumed everyone would eventually screw you over. Until that day on the highway. Until Ghost. He never told anyone what it did to him. The way she looked up at him with those wide, flat, empty eyes from the ditch, like she didn't even believe she was worth being saved. That moment it did something. Something deep. Like a blade slipped between the ribs and twisted. And once that switch flipped, there was no flipping it back. See, when you save something that's small, that helpless, and you watch it keep fighting anyway, it changes how you see everything else. Ghost didn't give up, not once. Not when her body was broken. Not when the pain got so bad she whimpered in her sleep. Not even when the vet told Steel that maybe it'd be kinder to let her go. Ghost chose to live. And that made him ask, for the first time in years, what the hell he'd been doing with his own life. At first, taking care of her was about guilt. He couldn't stop seeing the way she looked lying there in the weeds. But it grew. Real fast. He started waking up early to change her bandages. Learned how to boil rice and chicken when she wouldn't eat kibble. Bought books on canned physical therapy. He even drove 2 hours out of town to a woman who specialized in healing trauma in abused animals. Some days, the only time he spoke out loud was to Ghost. Not because he didn't like people. He just didn't trust them. But Ghost, she never lied, never asked for anything, never judged. Eventually, she stopped flinching when he raised his hand too fast. Started wagging her tail when he said her name. Started sleeping curled up next to his boots instead of under the couch. But here's the part nobody expects. It wasn't just Ghost who was healing. Steel had always been this walking contradiction. Big heart buried under 10 tons of rusted armor. But with Ghost, There was no pretending, no posturing, just this tiny heartbeat that trusted him even when he didn't trust himself. It cracked something open inside him. He started saying no to fights, stopped showing up to places he knew would drag him backwards. He even left the club, not with drama. Just slipped out, no fireworks, no goodbyes. Told the guys he was done patching over scars that never healed. Most didn't understand. A few did. But none of them saw what was coming next, because this wasn't just a redemption story. It was a ripple. After Ghost was strong enough, Steele started taking her to a dog park on the edge of town. At first, people stared. Big biker, scary beard, battle-scarred pit mix with a limp. Parents pulled their kids a little closer. But Ghost didn't bark or growl. She just sat there, calm, eyes steady, like she was watching the world rebuild itself one breeze at a time. One day, a kid named Tyler sat next to them, maybe 11 years old. Dirty sneakers, hooded sweatshirt with holes in the sleeves. Didn't say a word for the first 20 minutes. Just pet Ghost real slow, like he was waiting for her to snap. Steele didn't ask questions, just let it happen. A few days later, Tyler was back, then again. Then his mom showed up, nervous, awkward. Said Tyler didn't talk to anyone anymore. Not since his dad left. Not since the night with the cops. But he talked to Ghost. They started coming every Tuesday. Sometimes Tyler brought treats. One time, he brought a sketchbook with drawings of Ghost. Shaky lines, huge eyes, but you could see the love in every pencil stroke. Steele didn't try to fix anything. He just showed up, sat there. Talked when Tyler wanted to. Stayed quiet when he didn't. It caught on. Then came Maddie, the high school girl with the lisp who'd been told she couldn't have a dog because of her asthma. But Ghost didn't trigger anything. Maddie brought books. Read to them out loud. Ghost would curl up next to her like a therapy dog that never got certified but didn't need to. Then came the vet tech who'd been burned out and ready to quit until she met Ghost. Then came the couple who adopted their first rescue because they wanted one like Ghost. Then came the fundraiser Steele started for the shelter he used to think was a waste of time. Ghost became something more than a dog. She was a symbol. Proof that broken things can be beautiful. That the end of the road might just be a new beginning if someone decides to turn around. But it wasn't all soft music and happy tears. There were setbacks. Ghost had flare-ups. Times when her leg would ache so badly she couldn't walk. Nights when the old trauma crept back in, and she'd shake under the bed for hours. And Steele still had rage boiling under the surface. Still had moments where he wanted to punch walls, scream into the wind, go back to being the guy who didn't care. But then he'd look at her. That one cloudy eye. That slow, steady tail wag. And he'd remember you don't throw away something just because it's hard. You don't quit on someone who's still fighting. The story started spreading. Someone posted a photo of them online. Steele with his tattooed arms and Ghost in her sidecar, goggles on, ears flapping like victory flags. The caption read, "The toughest guy, the sweetest dog." It went viral. Suddenly, people were reaching out. News stations, podcasts, animal shelters asking him to speak. A biker who never trusted the end became a symbol of second chances. And through it all, Ghost stayed the same. Steady, solid, herself. One day, years after that first rescue, Steele went back to the road where he found her. He parked the Harley, looked around. The weeds had grown taller, but the ditch was still there. He stood in silence for a long time. Then he took off his vest, same one he'd wrapped her in all those years ago, and laid it in the grass. Ghost limped over, sat next to it. He whispered, "This is where I lost myself, and where you gave me back." She leaned against him, just like always. They stood there until the sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold and fire. Then they got back on the bike and rode. Because that's what they did now. Ride forward. Together. Always.